going to open our meeting. Thank you everyone for attending, and just to advise everyone that we are recording this meeting and we also are live streaming it. And just request that everybody at the meeting be respectful of and considerate towards the other people attending, so language or conduct at the meeting that could be perceived as offensive, defamatory or threatening to a person attending the meeting or listening.
We cannot hear you, Lord, I'm sorry.
Right.
We can't hear. I don't know whether these microphones are not working because we're not allowed to use it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? I think
no.
I...
No, that might be. Try again.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, someone right up the back behind you, Mr. Mary Dew, gave me the thumbs up. No? Okay, I'll just proceed because normally we don't have a lot of amplification on our microphones. It's more for the recording, so I'll try and be a bit louder than normal. So I did just open the meeting, and I've just noted that we have one apology tonight, which is Councillor Kitsos, who is an apology. I will start with an acknowledgement to country, and just wanted to acknowledge that this city is built on the land of the Muwinina people, and we acknowledge that every meeting, because that's part of our traditions. We can't welcome people to country in the way Aboriginal people can, but we can acknowledge that this place was the home of the Muwinina people before it was colonised, and we all benefit in a sense from the loss of their land. And I just wanted to say how sad I was to see some of the coverage of Anzac Day ceremonies where welcome to country statements were being booed, and I found that very sad. So very proudly acknowledging our links to the traditional owners of this land. Thank you. The confirmation of our minutes from the 27th of April meeting, moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Alderman Bloomfield. All those in favour of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 3 is the transfer of agenda items. Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, we have a fair amount of interest in item number 16 tonight. I think that's what most of the public gallery are here for, and I would just ask that we bring that one forward.
So moved by, is that seconded by Councillor Dutta? So that's a procedural motion. I don't know whether, do we take debate on that? No. Just take it? Yeah, okay. So it's a procedural motion to move that item. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.
No.
Show of hands. All those in favour.
Councillor Dutta, Councillor Coates, Councillor Lohberger, Alderman Bloomfield and the Deputy.
And against?
Alderman Zuko, Councillor Basalt, Councillor Harvey and the Lord Mayor.
And Kelly.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kelly. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it's tied.
Yeah, that's tied, Lord Mayor.
So that we will proceed with our agenda as set out, which has been our tradition in the last 6 or so months, 12 months. Okay, communications from the Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge a very pretty and distinguished, item that has been presented to Alderman Zuko when he kindly hosted a flag-raising ceremony and reception for the South African Rainbow Nation Association of Tasmania, together with members of Tasmania's South African community to mark South African Freedom Day. This is the day that commemorates the first time South Africans of all races were able to vote freely, bringing to an end apartheid and ushering in the new democratic era. It's a significant occasion because it also celebrates the election of Nelson Mandela as president. On behalf of the City of Hobart, Alderman Zuko accepted this gift from Marla Crew, who's the president of the SARNAT group. And it was presented in appreciation of the city's support and recognition of this important milestone. Thank you to the South African community for that. Item 5 is the notification of council workshops. So just noting that on the 11th of May we had a workshop where we talked about, we had a presentation about wildfire house loss mapping, a presentation from the RACT about the Community Bushfire Resilience Project, which is next on the agenda, I think, midterm review of the City of Hobart's rating and valuation strategy. And then on the 18th of May, we had another workshop, and that was out at the Newtown Rowing Club. And that included a Newtown area briefing, transformation of Collins Street trial, update, project update on the multi-sport hub expansion out at Newtown. Heritage Count Committee is also on the agenda tonight. Sandy Bay Bathing Pavilion matter, and state and federal government funding analysis report. So that's all the busy things we have been doing since our last meeting. Now it is item 6, which is public question time, and I think we do have a couple of items we've received quite late, but I will ask those people to come up first. Tracy Withers provided notice of a question. Is Tracy here?
Tracy Withers?
Tracy Withers? No. Okay, Tracy Withers isn't here. We do have her question, so we'll respond to that one. We also have a question from Meredith Caligari. Meredith, would you like to come and ask your question?
Thank you. My name is Meredith Caligari. I host a short-term rental listing in our home, and I started the Tasmanian Airbnb host community group 10 years ago. I support all hosts who want to host. Airbnb founder Brian Chesky in an interview recently urged Australian cities and states to build, not ban, to resolve housing crises by building more homes rather than banning or penalising short-term rentals. He cited New York's strict Airbnb bans that says after 2 years rent prices have still increased by 8% and hotel prices have soared ridiculously. So we all know that this is a supply issue. There is evidence that banning short-term rental does not lower rental costs. Anecdotally, I can tell you that STR hosts will not return to LTR, they will sell. That might provide more housing for sale, but not for rent. So my questions are,
yes, thank you.
During the consultation process, are you prepared to sit down with hosts and listen to why they host STR rather than LTR? If this motion is passed, is Council prepared to fight in court, because I believe this is a punitive action and I believe it will go to court? And I want to know why my formal question was refused, and then I was offered to ask my question again. So they're my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. So thanks for submitting the question. As there is an item on the council agenda for this meeting that's of the same topic, we're unable to accept this question during public question time in terms of responding to it. So as such, your question will be treated as general correspondence and you'll receive a formal response in writing in due time. So we have another question from Mr. Caligari. Just 1 minute preamble and question, and then questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Roberto Caligari and I'm a co-host of an in-home short stay accommodation listing. And although the proposed discriminatory rate increase does not directly impact our listing, I'm concerned that the negativity thrown at certain platforms will directly affect our business. If all short stay homes were removed from Tasmania, there will be a massive shortfall of homes, as most would be unaffordable to low income households. And some hosts may indeed join the list of homeless, as they wouldn't be able to afford to keep their own properties. I can only conclude that this is a punitive financial burden on a very small number of ratepayers, with no realistic improvement on increasing affordable housing numbers. My questions are, has any modelling been done on how much additional income will be raised, how many additional houses will be added to the social housing pool, and the financial impact on affected hosts and their families? My second question is, why does the motion include, in brackets, investigate incentives for commercial hotel construction, but no mention of incentivising social housing construction? So what is the point of increasing the rates? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caligari. As with the last question, as there's an item on the council agenda for the meeting of tonight's meeting relating to this same topic, we are unable to accept this question during public question time. As such, your question will be treated as general correspondence and you will receive a formal response in due time. And those are the state Tasmanian meeting procedures that put that constraint on us. So we're not just being difficult, that's just the way the rules are written. Okay, are there any other public questions? Yes, please come forward. Please, introduce yourself and ask your question.
My name's Maria Riedel. You would have gotten a few emails from me regarding the Collins Street mess that we've got at the moment. Disabled people are struggling because there's one car park on one side of the street and they've got to go down to the lights or up that way to get across to Minimax or whatever the other shops are. So I've given you a copy of my statement, but my question is, and request is, can you have another City Hall meeting about the mess on this section and properly include shopkeepers, not just passing through cyclists? Please. No one I speak to likes this mess you've created, and that includes the bus stop. And I've sent you photos where cars are lined up, whoop whoop, and also a near miss by a cyclist and the person getting off the bus. So cyclists have their own rules. They don't actually follow rules, a lot of them without helmets, on footpaths, etc. So I'm a bit stressed about it because the shopkeepers are my friends. I go there, and they're very stressed as well.
Thank you. So can I clarify that your question is, will we have another City Hall meeting about it? Is that right?
Yeah. Who do I hand this to? Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you.
I've got a second copy.
So the CEO has just said that we'll take that question on notice and send you or include a response in the next in the minutes of this meeting. Okie doke. Are there any other? Yes, Mr. Merridew, or the other chap who's put his hand up. Whoever'd like to go first. Just introduce yourself, please.
Jason Dale. I'll keep this brief. Hobart has the highest rates of any municipality in the state. Meanwhile, potholes as well as road and footpath damage remains widespread and unattended to. Into the questions. Firstly, given how high Hobart's rates are, what specific measurable improvements in service delivery can Council point to that justify additional burden on households and small businesses? Secondly, can Council justify why ratepayer funds are being allocated to discretionary projects while core service delivery continues to face pressure or delays? Thirdly, What projects has Council actively deferred or cut in the past 12 months to ensure spending discipline, or is everything effectively being accommodated through higher rates? And fourth, has Council seriously investigated any other means to generate revenue without increasing tax upon ratepayers and businesses, noting that Section 73 of the Local Government Act permits investing in commercial activities for revenue generation? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. There's a lot of elements to that question, so we'll take that on notice and provide a response to you. And Mr. Merridew, lucky last.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, the sound is better down our end. Now, the issue is there are figures quoted in the press as to the number of Airbnbs in Tasmania and the number of Airbnbs in Hobart. The statement that is confusing is no one is able to say how many actual Airbnbs in Hobart are active. I have been asking that question for some time, but it appears as if somebody might know. It would be handy to know that this evening. My second comment is, when this City Council in 1966 approved parking meters to be the first capital city in Australia to have parking meters, it was approved by legislation government-wise that only the revenue from the meters and the appropriate fines was to be directed to doing something practical in the town, not, for example, to build high-rise car parks. Now that revenue built the Centre Point car park, it built the first part of the Argyle Street car park, and secondly the Bathurst Street car park. Currently the revenue to this council, according to the annual report, from parking fines and parking revenue, meters, etc., is in the order of between $20 to $25 million. Now, looking at that, my
Mr.
question
Merridew,
is, so the issue is, that's my statement, the issue is the plans, are there some plans for husbanding the income that may come from this dramatic increase and levy on rates? Is it going to provide shower blocks and toilets for the people who do choose to sleep rough? Is it going to provide a benefit for people who are wanting to provide houses for rental? What is the council's plan to husband and secure, put in a trust with the monies that come from these proposed increases?
Great.
I think that's fairly reasonable. Thank you.
That's clear. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Merridew. And we will take that question on notice and provide you with a response and put it in the minutes of the next meeting. Okie dokie. We will move on now to item 7, supplementary items. There are none. Are there any indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest for any of the items? There being none, we will move on now to petitions. Item 9 is petitions. Has anyone got, I don't think we've got a petition, no. Okay, we'll move on now to officer reports, and the first officer report, which we have discussed in a workshop, is the Hobart Bike Plan. There is a recommendation. Would someone like to move that? Moved by Councillor Posselt, second by Deputy Lord Mayor. Discussion? Any discussion on this? I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. No. Show of hands. All those in favour?
Councillor Lohberger, Councillor Harvey, Deputy Lord Mayor and the Lord Mayor.
And against?
Alderman Zuko, Councillor Coates, Alderman Bloomfield, Councillor Kelly. That's carried.
Lord Mayor,
That's carried, yes.
I had a few things to say about the bike plan. How come it happened so fast?
I just asked if anyone had any comments.
Yeah, I know, and I was waiting for something to happen and nothing happened and I was too slow. So it just makes no sense to me that we just push through. Anyway, good plan, very happy to support it.
Okay, yeah, I did see if there was any discussion, and you just have, you just have to jump up, yeah, if you're really keen to talk about
I
to
thought
it.
someone else might have had something to say too.
And I think, because it was discussed a bit at the workshop, that could be a reason
Thoroughly
why.
discussed at the
Yeah.
workshop, but anyway, move
Okay. Item 11 is the RACT Community Bushfire Resilience Project, moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. Any discussion?
Yes, don't go
Councillor
without,
Harvey.
don't go without me. Okay. I'm just wondering, the money we're going to invest in this, it's mostly in-kind support, as I understand. Is that correct?
CEO?
Because the list of things we were participating in seemed to be mostly in kind.
So it won't be in kind, it'll largely be officer time for that, but that's funding. So a little bit of materials and other sort of consumables, but mostly officer time.
Okay, yep. All right, thank you.
Further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. It's carried unanimously. Item 12 is the Heritage Account Special Committee. There's a recommendation. Alderman Bloomfield, did you want to move this on the committee? Moved by Alderman Bloomfield, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Discussion? Notice. Councillor Harvey.
Nearly got me again. I'm just wondering about the investment process here. Are we looking at an ethical investment, any funds that end up in that are in the heritage account? Ethical investments rather
I presume
than
so. All of our accounts.
Through you, Lord Mayor, there's no proposal as part of these changes to change the focus of the investments. I don't know whether Michelle might like to add something to that.
Through you, Lord Mayor, so it's the same investment that we've had for a number of years, but we will be reviewing it with the next council.
Okay, well that's, if I'm there, maybe the time to raise it again. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. So if there's no further discussion, I will put this. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 13 is the quarterly financial report. Someone like to move it? Moved by Councillor Posselt, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. Discussion, Alderman Bloomfield.
I just wanted to ask a few details because I was a little bit concerned with the figures that I'm seeing here in the quarterly report. If members look at page 39, you'll see that we've got a variance of around 0.6% or 1% down of revenue, but our expenditure's gone up by 10%, which has left us in a bit of a bad spot. So it's something that if I saw that in my own books, I'd be questioning. So I'd just like a little bit of confirmation of what we should be expecting in the next quarter and whether or not this is something we should start to review our infrastructure investment. Thank you.
Michelle.
Through you, Lord Mayor. So as we mentioned at the workshop, so the revenue forecasts were higher than what we had anticipated receiving. So the budget that will come forward next month adjusts that, and along with this reduction in expenditure as well.
So just a little bit more of a question, because it was really interesting to see what had actually changed. Like, for instance, fines are down by 30%, which was quite a surprise with the revenue. And equally true, we also had a 13% in other fees and so forth. It just looks like we're looking at a bit of a constant contraction. And in particular, we have off-street parking has definitely gone down, even less than what was actually budgeted. So do you feel that's more of a contraction of the economy as well that we're seeing here with this?
Through you, Lord Mayor. No, so these were actually budget estimates that were higher than what we had, and we've done a really thorough review during the year, which is why we've lowered the estimates for this year.
Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I had a question along the same lines. Just around the variances that Alderman Bloomfield was talking to. There's a really, really big variance with interest payments of 66%. I just wondered if we could get some explanation about why it was such a large variance.
So through you, Lord Mayor. So the investments, we have a policy that allows us to what we were able to and who we're able to invest with. So what we've actually done is try to maximise the amount that we've been able to invest in our term deposit accounts this year, which is actually, with the interest rates obviously going up, is giving us a better return at the moment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 14 is the establishment of a City of Hobart Charitable Trust. There's a recommendation there by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Alderman Bloomfield. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a few questions. I remember bringing this matter up in the workshop. With regards to the Constitution, Rule number 10 refers to members, and my question is, who are these members and how many members will this be? And then there's another clarification that I'm seeking as well. Rule number 21.1, how many members can request a general meeting? It says members can request that the directors call a general meeting, but it does not say how many members are required to call a general meeting. Does that mean if one member calls a general meeting, then that the obligation is to call a meeting?
CEO.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So the member is the council, so we're the only member in that sense. So it's a decision of the council to seek a meeting. So as you say, it would be either a motion or council report to initiate that.
All right, just a clarification follow-up, Lord Mayor. So the council refers to the elected members?
Yeah, the Hobart City Council is the sole member, yes.
So okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, just the follow-up question then. With regards to Rule 24, Quorum General Meetings, 24.1 states that for a general meeting to be held, all of the members must be present in person. So if one elected member is not present, there is no quorum.
CEO.
So look, I think you're reading that way too literally. So the member needs to be represented, the council needs to be represented. So and it's again silent as to how many is required to be able to achieve that. But again, you might argue that a quorum would be sufficient to meet that requirement.
A quorum of the council.
The quorum of the council.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. It's just that it's not very clear. That's all. Therefore, the question. And then. Then there are representations made. You can have a representation by an elected member with regards to this matter. Now, say for example, if I have a friend, because I'm not able to attend, can I then nominate that particular person to represent as the proxy to the meeting?
CEO.
So, not to represent as a representative of the member. No, you wouldn't be able to do that. It would need to be yourself.
Yeah, I think there are still some inconsistencies and clarifications. So either if this is adopted today, I think there will be the responsibility of the directors then to have a standard policy in order to guide the operational aspect of it, because they are very vague and it creates, it's not explicitly stated. It can be implied, and when it's implied, you can argue whichever way you can. So therefore, I think these things need to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Posselt.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'll just be really brief. I just wanted to say that this presents such a great opportunity, and I applaud the work done by the CEO and yourself in this area to be able to provide a tax-deductible charity by which we can take donations. Because the thing is about this city, and we see behind us tonight, but also around the table, every council meeting, and indeed in all of our internal meetings with our staff, people are really passionate about their towns and cities. And some people do have wealth that they want to see invested into making and building a better place. Those of us who don't have wealth often do it by dedicating time, whether it's to being a councillor, showing up to council meetings and showing an interest, or even volunteering in the community. Goes as far as looking after verges and picking up a piece of rubbish when you're walking by. This is a really, really great step in the right direction, and I just think it gives the community more buy-in into their city, which is why I'm genuinely very excited and did think that it was worth getting up and saying my piece and thanking the CEO for his work. I know he travelled to Queensland to see the well-established fund and understand how it operates. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can deliver from this over the next decade or so. But I do think, and I do hope, that we deliver some amazing outcomes that are funded by the community for the community. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Bloomfield.
Would we be able to approve this incorporating the recommendations from Councillor Dutta? Because I would like to see the mention of no proxies allowed, and also the definition of a member being a quorum of council. It would probably be something that we know today, but tomorrow, would that be possible? I think it's only a few subtle changes, is it? Or do we have to have everything precisely today?
So, I mean, this is based on legal advice, but I think the CEO can check those questions with the lawyers, and yeah.
I can certainly say, so what's intended, so this is the overarching framework, as you'd understand from a governance point of view. So the deed and the Constitution provides the overarching framework, and then it is the requirement, if we are appointed tonight, which will be myself and the CFO as the inaugural board members, then it would be required that we select a third board member, which will come back to council too. So we'll go through a process and the council will appoint that person, and then we need to develop the governance framework, the policies, which will actually then address a lot of the questions that you're asking here tonight.
Fine,
So.
that's great. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll put that. Oh, Councillor Dutta.
I had questions then, but I just want to re-emphasise, 24.1, either you read it literally or not. It says here, for a general meeting to be held, all of the members must be present in person, by proxy or by representative. So that it's very clear, if we interpret that 24.1, that if we are saying that the members refer to all elected members, we have answered that. And then the next element in that is that all must be present in person. So if you are not present in person, then you can be present by proxy or by representative. So, therefore I'm saying that there are some clarifications required. Thank you.
So CEO, would you like, are you able to get the lawyer to speak to that here, or?
I might be able to provide some assistance through you, Lord Mayor. If you look at clause 12, it actually refers to the members of the company are the Hobart City Council. So it is the council, it's not individual elected members who are members, it is the council as a body, not individual elected members.
Yeah, okay, very, very true. So that's the very point I'm making, that if it's the Hobart City Council, it's not the elected members. Or is it the Hobart City Council equates to elected members?
That's correct, through you, Lord Mayor.
All right.
The Hobart City Council is a statutory body formed under the Local Government Act.
Sure.
The elected members make up the Hobart City Council, but elected members individually are not members. It is the council itself that is a member.
All right, but if you read 24.1, there is that confusion, I think, even though if you relate that there. So I'm drawing your attention to that.
Okay, so we might ask the CEO to just see if the lawyer has a small explanatory.
Look, I don't think an amendment's required. No. Again, I think we are able to provide the guidance in respect to the policy around the conduct of annual general meetings and the like. So the framework in the governance documents are broader. We can certainly make sure there's specific understanding in terms of the policy framework that sits beneath.
And that's the point I was making. Thank you.
Yep.
Well,
Alderman Zuko.
Let's clarify what the council is. We are the council. As individual elected members, under what has been proposed, it's the council that's the member. It's not the individual elected members. So once the council makes a decision, it's the council that is doing it. So whatever our requirement is for a quorum would be the council making a decision. So that's how it's been operating for as long as I've been here. Now, it's not any of us individually. So if there's only 7 of us here tonight, that's the council that's made a decision. that represents on that body.
Thanks, Alderman.
Again, Lord Mayor, I take the point that
Alderman,
the CEO
Alderman
has made.
Dutty, you've made your comments,
Yes.
but I think it's been noted, and I think we
Thank you.
understand that because it's talking about proxies, it's a little confusing.
That's right.
So that's been
that's
noted.
appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I will put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 15 is Code of Conduct report. Would someone like to move this? Moved by Alderman Zuko, seconded by Councillor Harvey. Any discussion? There being Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I just felt compelled to say a few words. This is, in my 8 years, this is the very first Code of Conduct that I have submitted. Obviously, the matter is between Councillor Kelly and I, but I just wanted to say a few words as a result of the issues around this particular matter. In September 2024, in a democratic country, in this chamber, I questioned the decisions of decision makers around this table on the nomination of a planning committee. What followed was a line of bullying and harassment, as one of the witnesses, Councillor Harvey, expressed by statutory declaration, and I read, "On the 16th of September, during the adjournment of our council meeting, I heard Councillor Kelly state to the Deputy Lord Mayor that she was disgusting. He was also gesturing towards her in a very aggressive manner and continued to speak to her in an unprofessional and inappropriate tone. The Deputy Lord Mayor was not responding. When I turned to look at her, she appeared noticeably distressed. I reached out and put my hand and placed my hand on hers as a sign of support. I then left. After I came back, Councillor Kelly was still speaking and behaving in an aggressive manner. In fact, Lord Mayor, Councillor Kelly breached 5 clauses of the Code of Conduct, not 1, not 2, but 5. Councillor Kelly, on appeal of the panel's decision, after that, TASCAT actually noted, the applicant, Councillor Kelly, has not established that the panel failed to comply with the rules of natural justice and the application for review must fail. But I must outline what was the premise upon which Councillor Kelly based his appeal. One of them was apprehended bias. Councillor Kelly stated, and this was part of the submissions, and I quote, "Regarding the composition of the hearing being made up of a female complainant, 3 female investigating panel members and 1 male defendant. As that single male defendant, I feel extremely uncomfortable and intimidated and strongly request that further consideration is given to the hearing having a gender balance. Could you possibly imagine an investigation comprising of 4 males and the defendant being the sole female, especially when the complainant alleges male aggression?" End quote. The Deputy President of TASCAT, on the basis of this apprehended bias, stated, "The applicant's contention also fails at the second step. There must be an articulation of the logical connection between the gender of the panel and the feared deviation from the course of deciding the inquiry on its merits. The applicant did not articulate any logical connection. Indeed, the assertion of apprehended bias is quite breathtaking. It treats the members as one whole without individual agency. Quite apart from it being at odds with modern cultural mores, taken to its logical conclusion, the existence of an apprehension of bias from gender alone would make areas of the administration of justice largely unworkable."
Yes.
Point
of order.
Raising issues that are relevant to the motion. We're here to discuss and note the motion that's in front of us, which is the Code of Conduct determination. What we're having read to us is a separate TASCAT determination. The TASCAT determination not even part of it.
Yeah,
if you look at the document.
I don't think that's a sufficient point of order to make that, because it is related, I think, to the Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
It would mean, for example, that no judge could hear cases involving violence, including sexual violence or family violence, where the complainant and defendant were of different gender. The same would apply to juries. Family law proceedings would be stymied. In respect to Code of Conduct matters, it would mean that an investigating panel could only sit to determine a complaint where each member of the panel and the complainant and the respondent counsellor are all of the same gender. With regards to the video recording Lord Mayor, during my submissions, I said that I did not believe that this was a private conversation under the Listening Devices Act, and I provided evidence for that in consideration of the fact that elected members were in this room and staff members were also present in this room. It did not fall within the definition of a private conversation. I also put forward to the panel that an exception is also applied, that a listening device can be used where an individual feels an imminent threat of serious violence, or under section 10.2 where the communication or publication is reasonably necessary for the protection of lawful interests, such as not being physically assaulted. The panel determined that the recording had not been made in breach of the Listening Devices Act, as the recorded conversation did not fall within the definition of a private conversation under section 3 of the Act. The TASCAT noted it is apparent from the panel's determination report that the applicant was given the opportunity to object, but the panel determined that the recording was relevant and admissible. Lord Mayor, I would like an extension of time, please, just for an additional 2 minutes. Thank you.
So moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Coates. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously.
TASCAT also noted that even if the recording was made in breach of the Listening Devices Act, evidence obtained improperly or in contravention of the law is not to be excluded simply on that basis. A court or tribunal must balance the probity of the evidence. In the recording, Lord Mayor, that was submitted, Councillor Posselt can be heard to try and assist me. He says, and I quote, John, it's not appropriate. Councillor Kelly interrupts him and says, I'm not going to take notice of you. Shut your mouth. It's not appropriate for you to join in. When we talk about bullying and harassment, I submitted to the panel that in the Code of Conduct determination of the previous case, the panel stated that we accept that a single incident may breach this clause. The Australian Fair Work Ombudsman also notes examples of bullying behaviour, such as being abusive, insulting, or offensive language or comments, and unjustified criticism. Based on the evidence I submitted of Councillor Kelly's behaviour on 2 separate followings, it was during the publicly televised meeting, plus what transpired and continued into the adjournment, where other elected members and staff were present. The panel found that much of Councillor Kelly's speech was directed specifically at Councillor Sherlock. The panel determines that this was bullying and harassment. The panel disagrees with Councillor Kelly's assertion that Councillor Sherlock was really heated, describing Councillor Kelly's claim as a completely false interpretation. The panel said, and I quote, to describe Councillor Sherlock's expression of her disappointment as bringing the council to its knees was a gross overstatement by Councillor Kelly and was unfair to Councillor Sherlock. Further, Councillor Kelly continued to harass Councillor Sherlock during the adjournment. Lord Mayor, we see individuals calling out toxic behaviour in local government. We probably heard the comments made by Mayor Paula Wright, and I remain committed to lifting the tone because it's absurd to me that people think that this behaviour is acceptable or excusable.
That's
this is
time.
Sorry, can I just finish one last thing? In my case, the panel determined, and I quote, that the tone, gestures, words and stance adopted by Councillor Kelly in his speech was an attempt to cower me. I've been elected by the people. I would not cower.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Harvey, that's, if you could let Alderman Bloomfield speak now.
I've never been here before in a council where we actually decide to read out a finding of a code of conduct. I can only imagine that this was to further humiliate the elected member, and it does nothing to the debate, or in fact does not in fact lower the tone. I find this quite offensive that we couldn't simply be mature enough to simply allow this to be noted as professionals in this room and to move on. The job has been done and it should stay done.
Further discussion?
Yeah, Lord Mayor, I've been around this place for as long as some people might be of age. I've never, again, witnessed anything like that. This hearing happened. It went through a process. We don't need to sit here and having to listen to whatever was provided as evidence or not. At the end of the day, a determination was made. I've never witnessed any person get up and state their points in regards to what occurred. And I'm going to let people know there's going to be a code of conduct coming forward next month that I was associated with and had cleared against me. And I can't wait now because someone has just put it on the council table on how we should conduct ourselves.
Alderman Zuko, can I just say that I just wanted to remind you that the outcome of a code of conduct determination. You've talked about it being.
Lord Mayor, I said there's an outcome coming. I didn't mention anything other than something I'm associated with.
I'm just giving you fair warning to be careful.
You can warn me, Lord Mayor. You just want to interrupt.
No, I'm doing my job as a chair.
You do want to interrupt.
No,
that's all you want to do, Lord Mayor. I didn't mention anything other than this one coming next month, and I can't wait. I really cannot wait because I'm going to get my 5 minutes of time there too.
You will indeed.
We'll see how you're going to feel like.
Okay, Alderman Zuko. Any further discussion? There being Councillor Kelly.
I was going to let the matter slide, but it's a pity, as Councillor Alderman Zuko said, that he's 32 years, he's never seen 34, beg your pardon, anything like this. The matter's there for noting, and it just shows you the calibre of a person who has to get up from their soapbox, and it's a new low we've reached here tonight, that someone has to go on. The report's in there, it's been in the press, and it's disappointing, isn't it? And this person who's put this chamber now to a new low and shown her true colours, well, we all know she's going to have her day in the sun very, very soon, and I look forward to that happening.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councillor Harvey, could you just sit down for a moment? Look, I just wanted to say I don't like there being a suggestion of sort of vague suggestions of threats coming from some elected members, that something's coming and, you know,
I can
we
give
can
more
all...
definite details if you'd like about it.
No, because the tone is just a bit threatening. So
the tone is set with such a low bar.
No,
low
okay.
Bar,
That's your opinion. I understand that's your opinion, Councillor Kelly. I just wanted
individual just shows her true colours.
Councillor Kelly, if you could take your seat now, please. Thank you. Councillor Harvey, do you want to keep talking about this?
Just for a moment. Local government's worked really hard. Legat has had a Lift the Tone campaign running across the state for I don't know how many months now. Is it having an impact? I don't know. But the language that was just used, because someone has stated the facts and the findings of a code of conduct panel, really just perpetuates the aggression. The panel found in favour of the Deputy Lord Mayor. She stated the facts from that, and then to be criticised that this is just continuing or perpetuating something. So I'd just I'd caution everybody to just take it easy and don't, play the victim, and just follow the guidance of the Local Government Association. Lift the tone. That's where we need to be heading. That everyone who thinks that they know needs to think carefully about how they behave in this room, and they don't get into the position of putting themselves in the vulnerability, that position where they have codes of conduct taken against them. This council has the worst record in the state. I think it's 42 codes of conduct, but some of them are well deserved.
Could you please explain what this got to do with the reporting of...
It's not a point of order, Councillor Clee, from my perspective.
Yeah,
thank you.
Just everyone needs to just lift the tone.
Councillor Harvey was providing comment. If there's no further discussion, I will just say something before we do receive and note that. I just wanted to say that while I appreciate that code of conducts generally are just received and noted silently, there is nothing in the meeting procedures or indeed, the practice of perhaps other councils to talk about the contents of the report. So I think if matters are being re-prosecuted, it would be of a concern. But if it's really just about talking about the matters that are in the report and the process, then you know, it may not have happened a lot before, but you know, I think it's totally fair for people to speak about their code of conduct processes if they so choose to. Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. We now move on to a motion from Councillor Lohberger and Councillor Posselt about the short stay rates increase. Moved by Councillor Lohberger, seconded by Councillor Posselt. Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Right, it's been a fair bit of media attention about this one, so I'm sure we all know what we're talking about here, but I did want to go through a few things first. So look, as we're heading into winter, the housing crisis goes on and on. The average rent in Hobart is now higher than in Melbourne. The rental vacancy rate hovers just above zero. The housing waiting list is at a record level and rising. The erosion of long-term housing through conversion to tourism accommodation continues. And I expect the census this August will reveal a big rise in the number of homeless Tasmanians, especially in the south of the state. But if you try to do anything practical about the loss of long-term housing in Hobart, you're called a communist, or worse, by all sorts of people. I won't go into details, but there has certainly been a bit of abuse floating around out there on social media since this motion was announced. What we are debating here tonight is an increase in the property rate for the R7 category, that is whole home short stay accommodation properties only. This will not affect in-home short stay, where the homeowner rents a spare bedroom or an attached bedsit in their home, or a granny flat in their backyard. In-home short stay makes up 62% of all short stay properties in the Hobart municipality. So tonight we are effectively debating rates for the minority of short stay properties in the Hobart municipality only. It is hard to see how tonight's decision could in any way be a threat to the entire sector's viability in the state, but that has been suggested to me by advocates in the past week. We're also dealing with properties here that are not lived in by their owners and are therefore not the owners' homes. They are investment properties owned by people who live in a home elsewhere. And emotive language about people's right to do what they want with their homes is not relevant to this debate. So governments and property sector interests have been very consistent in blaming the housing crisis on a lack of long-term housing supply. There's not enough supply, we need to build more, has been the catch cry for many years, and I'm sure everyone around this table has heard it said. The same sources have also spent years denying that the conversion of long-term housing stock into tourism accommodation was having any effect at all on the crisis. But whole home short stay accommodation has removed thousands of homes from Tasmania's long-term residential stock, and the Tasmanian government finally acknowledged this reality in 2024 when it said, quote, "There is no doubt that the increasing number of houses on the short stay market has reduced the availability of long stay rentals and contributed to higher rents." That's the state government itself saying that. So there are now 4,700 whole homes on the state government's CBOS dashboard for short stay accommodation in Tasmania. Hobart rents are higher than Melbourne, the rental vacancy rate is at all-time low, and there are a record 5,400 individuals and family groups on the housing waiting list in Tasmania. You do not need to be Einstein to connect these numbers. The unchecked conversion of long-term residential homes into short stay accommodation in Tasmania is very clearly contributing to the housing crisis in this state. Somebody has to do something, and the Hobart City Council is trying. The council offers rate and fee rebates to housing service providers all around Hobart. We run the Housing with Dignity reference group that gives people who are homeless or suffering from housing stress a voice to the council, and we provide the use of council buildings and direct staff time to facilitate a wide range of housing charities. The council will also trial a new extreme weather shelter for the homeless to be open during severe weather events starting later this year. Now, we have already doubled rates for whole home short stay accommodation on this council in 2024, which did slow the loss of residential housing, but it has not stopped it. and that is an important point to make here. The loss of residential housing to short stay conversion has not stopped. It has continued with more than 100 short stay permits approved in our municipality since the rates were doubled in 2024. There have also been over 130 remissions granted to properties with short stay permits after evidence was provided to show they are being used for long-term residential accommodation. But these remissions include an unknown number of properties that were already in long-term residential use before the rates were doubled. So the total number of remissions does not correlate to the total number of homes returned to long-term usage in response to that rate increase. I'm just going to have to ask for a bit of extra time, Lord Mayor, if that's okay.
Moved by Councillor Posselt, seconded by Councillor Coates. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Is that 1 minute or 2 minutes?
I'll go with 3, but I won't use them all, Lord Mayor.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously, 3 minutes.
Thank you. It is also worth noting here that there is a set rates pool for all ratepayers, and if rates payments increase for one category of ratepayer, they will decrease slightly for all others. So if we do pass this increase for whole home short stay properties tonight, it will also lead to a slight decrease in all other rates payments from 2027-28. Now, a number of short stay advocates have raised with me the needs of tourists visiting this state with children. But really, I've seen a mother and her children living in a homeless shelter. I've worked with families who do not have homes. Sorry, I'll start that again. I've worked with families who did have homes in Hobart but had to leave in search of cheaper rent and then commute long distances back into the city for their kids' school and their work. I've worked with families where some or all of the kids had to live with relatives because the parents couldn't find a home big enough for the family that they could afford. And I've worked with families who did choose to stay in the city but were unable to feed themselves or their kids properly after spending everything on rent and bills. I've spent years working at the coalface of the housing crisis, and I will not apologise for putting the victims of the crisis first. All those renters being squeezed by soaring rental prices, the young people who can't get into the property market at all, the families forced out of the city and away from their support networks, the adult children having to move back in with their parents again, and so many people living in cars and sheds and backyards and on couches and floors. The stress in these people's lives is incredible, and it is all driven by the housing crisis. The steady loss of long-term residents is damaging Hobart. Suburban streets and neighbourhoods are being eroded by the loss of our neighbours as they are forced out by the lack of available housing or by rental and property prices artificially inflated by competition from tourism accommodation providers. If this crisis continues unabated, we run the real risk of schools, pharmacies, neighbourhood shops, post office outlets and other services being reduced or even withdrawn from our suburbs as the number of residents who live there long-term declines. Finally, if there are more homes in Hobart's long-term residential market, it means more people are housed during a housing crisis. At the end of the day, it really is that simple, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
I think Councillor Dutta was up first.
Lord Mayor, I would like to move an amendment, or alternatively, the mover and the seconder could adopt this in the motion as points.
That's come up on your screens with the red.
It's on the screen. That the differential rates for land use for the residential short stay visitor accommodation purposes for 26-27 be increased to the same differential rate as for land used for commercial and industrial purposes, because then that clarifies it very clearly as to what 26-27 rates would be. Thank you.
Councillor Lohberger.
Mayor, as the mover, I'm happy to accept that in, but I think it needs a little bit more clarity around the fact that we are just talking about whole home, R7, whole home short stay visitor accommodation, and not, we don't want to capture in-home with this
We don't have a differential rate for that.
I just seek advice, I guess, from the CEO about whether it needs any slight change.
Ms McDonnell.
Thank you, Stu, your Mayor. That from a rating perspective, that resolution is correct and would only take effect for those properties classified by the Value General as R7, short stay visitor accommodation.
Fantastic. On that basis, I'll be happy to accept that clause in. I'm not sure about the seconder.
Yeah, happy to accept that in.
Okay.
Are we just discussing the amendment or what's happening?
It's been
It's been accepted in or what's happening?
It's been accepted in.
So it's not an amendment? I think it still is an amendment.
Yeah, okay, Alderman Zito, thank you. We will, sorry, CEO, would you like to?
My view is, Lord Mayor, is that it would need to be an amendment because it is different to what the motion is proposing in terms of the 26-27 financial year. So I don't think that you can actually accept it in as substantially in accordance with that motion.
We have done a range of different things with these over the years with different governance advice, but I'm going to take the CEO's advice on that and ask Councillor Dutta, Alderman Zucker, if you could just sit down for a moment. Councillor Dutta, if you have a seconder for your amendment. Is there a seconder for Councillor Dutta's amendment? There being no seconder, then that lapses. Sorry? Oh, okay. So seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. So we'll now discuss the amendment. Councillor Zucco was up first. Oh, sorry, Alderman Zucco.
Yeah, Lord Mayor, when this matter came up the first time to double the rents, I actually proposed that we get a report back that considers whether or not short stay accommodation changes. But not only short stay, I'm very adamant it's not about just picking on one organisation. I think any conversion from residential to any commercial activity, whether it be a doctor's surgery, whether it be a dentist, whether it be short stay and all that, should be looked at in the sense of changing the category of that property. I've advocated that for years, and I advocated it when we wanted to go down the pathway of doubling it. What we're doing now, though, is we're making decisions on the run. We've got a notice of motion here to go 4 times with, and I'll discuss the motion later on. Now we've got an amendment coming forward to go down the pathway of going that, of changing the rate base. If we're serious about doing things and doing things in the proper perspective, decisions like this should not be made on the floor of council. So even though I am supportive of the conversions from any residential to any commercial aspect, whether it be short stay, and I'll repeat it, doctors, surgeries, dentists, vets or anything, we need to go down the pathway of a proper process. This is not a proper process. I think the process would have, to me, would have been that a report be provided to this council from the CEO in regards to conversions from residential to any other business, and then we consider the report that could come forward. I believe this is going down the pathway of making decisions, in particular 2027. I think we need to know all the details and the factors, and I haven't got no details. In fact, can't support this in its current format, but I do support the concept because I'm the one that actually suggested it when we went and doubled the rate in the first instance.
Councillor Coates.
Yeah, look, as it stands now, the proposed amendment obviously adds that last dot point, but I think it's worth looking at the ones above. The original motion says that doubling the rate for whole home for implementation in the 27-28 financial year after all legislative requirements including consultation have been met. So that's what the original motion was. Now this adds a new section that says that we're also going to do it for make another change for residential up until commercial industrial purpose for 26-27, which starts in 4 weeks time. Now the officer's report, if you read it on item 16, I won't include the same one, but 6.16 of the officer's report talks about if we determine for a different rate for commercial use, you'd have to go for working consultation. Accordingly, given that rates will be set next month, it would not be possible to make this change for 26-27. Now, in emergencies, all sorts of things can be done, but the idea that we're going to be able to do what looks like an interim measure for next financial year by passing this amendment tonight is just, it is a good process. It's seeking to circumvent what is a consultation, and to be fair to the movers. They've put in there, but it's got to be the 27-28 financial year. And, you know, I just can't see that we can support this amendment as it's worded and as it stands and what it intends to do. I think it just completely cuts out the community.
Alderman Bloomfield.
I quite find this quite strange to do, to be honest, because when we calculate the rates, we effectively start with a budget analysis of exactly how much we need. And then based on that, we work out how much each person in our rating system needs to pay. And then that works out backwards just how much each element will be. So by changing this, we literally are increasing how much rates overall we're going to get, because are we going to recalculate every single rate to actually recalculate this additional punitive change? This is why I would say that the administration has said we can't do that. At short notice is too much work. So it's an unfair burden, let alone the fact that we are simply making change for change's sake. We're not consulting, we're not being appropriately professional with the way we actually carry ourselves, and effectively charging rates at whatever we choose today. That's not how this job's done.
Sorry, can I just ask a question of the CEO? I'm just wondering about, or maybe Ms McDonnell, just the staff's advice, item 15. Does that, I don't know who wrote that advice, was that, could you just speak to item 15, please?
Thank you, through you, Lord Mayor. Item 15 suggests to the council that an option could be that is available to them would be to benchmark the rate against the differential applied to commercial and industrial properties. At the time the strategies, that's the rating and valuation strategy, was introduced, the differential for commercial industrial was about 2.21 times the residential rate. Originally, the council decision was to ensure that properties used for the commercial purpose of short stay contributed to, in the same way as commercial properties would be. At the moment, that's slightly out of step. So one option to council is to benchmark it, and there would be no more rates that would come from that proposal, because if the rates are set at the budget, there's no more rates that come from increasing the rate for this differential. It just means other residential properties would pay slightly less in rates.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I acknowledge the comments made, and I want to simply say, firstly, that what I find strange is the strangeness of the acceptance of the recommendations made. If you look at the paper that is presented to us, and where the staff member has very clearly spoken, point number 15, and I read it for clarity. It says, in this context, one option available to council, should it wish to adjust the current SSVA differential for 26-27 rating year, would be to benchmark the rate against the differential applied to commercial and industrial. And then it goes on to say it's 2-2-1. That's the benchmarking. So in order to give this clarity, I thought the way to go would be to say, okay, here it is, the recommendation made by staff. There's nothing strange in here. What is strange is that we don't understand that we have followed a process. And the process was, we discussed about this quite clearly for a number of months. The process is, when the motion comes, the staff makes their response. And the response of the staff is an 18 points response. And number 15 is categorically clear. And that's why I made that suggestion. I then also sought advice. Having read that, I spoke to a staff member to say, can you please help me if my interpretation is valid? And I was given the okay. Yes, your interpretation is okay. I then checked my motion to make sure that my putting of the wording was endorsed and supported by staff. I was very careful. So I followed the process. I followed the advice to give clarity so that in the community out there, the understanding is that we will put this on from 26-27. And I wanted to make it sure that no, that was not going to happen. 26-27 will be the commercial and industrial rating which will be benchmarked. Therefore, for 27-28, after the report has come, we will then make the decision based on debate, discussion, consultation. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lohberger,
Thank you,
speaking
Lord
on
Mayor.
the amendment.
I'm speaking on the amendment, and I just wanted to speak briefly just in support of my colleague, Councillor Dutta. I do support this amendment. I would make a couple of points. We've heard about the need for proper process. I first brought up the proposal to potentially double rates again in October last year at a planning day, and I distinctly recall Alderman Zuko and Councillor Kelly raising their voices at me, so it hasn't just come out of nowhere.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I don't know about this raising by
what's the
voices
point of
at
order?
a workshop.
It was a planning day at the
So
nursery.
sorry,
Okay.
I'll sit down please, Councillor Lohberger. The point of order is, what's your point of order?
It's a derogatory comment towards me in regards to...
So I think that's 27D. The councillor claims to have been misrepresented during the debate. So you're claimed to have shouted. You've been claimed to have shouted. I'm going to ask that Councillor Lohberger considers whether he might be misrepresenting Alderman Zuko, given the feedback he's had.
I do have a very specific memory, Lord Mayor, of it, but I will withdraw that comment if that will make Alderman Zuko feel better. However, the point stands. It was raised at the planning day 7 months ago. It hasn't just come out of nowhere. And I did also want to commend Councillor Dutta for following the process when it comes to putting the words together. I was a bit worried about what they said, but he has already checked them with staff, so he knew exactly where he was going with this. So I think it's wrong to say there's been no process followed, and I would support this amendment. Thank you.
Any further discussion just on the amendment? There's no discussion. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.
No.
Show of hands, all those in favour.
Councillor Lohberger, Deputy Lord Mayor and the Lord Mayor,
And against?
Alderman Zuko, Councillor Coates, Alderman Bloomfield, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Harvey. That's 5-all, that's lost.
That's lost. Okie dokie. We'll move on now with the rest of the substantive motion. Councillor Harvey was up first.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. A crisis is what it takes to produce a better outcome. And we're in a housing crisis. I don't think anyone denies that. How do we fix the crisis? I think there's multiple angles. Changing the rates is probably an element. But we have to ask ourselves what comes next if we don't fix the crisis. What's the next level of this crisis? And I don't like to think, I don't want to think about it because it might be really dire where there's a lot more people living on the rivulet. But I'm also conscious that we have to have a process to meet our obligations as a council. And I don't think we're going through the best process here tonight. And we've gone through a couple of processes to get those innovations, let's call them, that we've had previously with regard to short stay. And that was the doubling of the rates and also the $5,000 planning fee. That was a couple of meetings back, I think. So I'm keen to see the impacts over time of those two elements. We've also got the state government with its 5% levy on bed nights, and that will be going to the upper house soon. So that's another push in the right direction, I hope. So we've got three things that have occurred, two from council, one from state government. This one that's being proposed tonight, this motion, while in principle I support it, but I would like to see a more detailed response and process, which means for me it needs to come back to us in 27, 28, when it's all been reviewed, so we can see what the impact of the past and the recent initiatives have been. So I won't support the motion tonight reluctantly. It really pains me because I know we don't solve a crisis by being timid about it. But I do believe process is really important, and I would like to see a more fulsome report on the impact that we've made with the two elements of a doubling of the rates, the $5,000 processing fee, and hopefully the state levy if it gets through the upper house in the coming week or so. So sorry to the mover of the motion tonight. I won't support it, but in the future it may be the case. But tonight I think we stick with a better process rather than a notice of motion. Notice of motions are not the best way of making decisions. I think a more fulsome approach is to call for a council report based on the initiatives we've already made and see whether that's having a significant impact or a minor impact, and then we can see what the next step is, and it might be that the next council decides that this is the action we want to take, but with the backing of a more fulsome report.
I think Councillor Posselt might have been up first, just.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'll have more to say on the matter. But firstly, I'll just address Councillor Harvey, who, as we are fully aware, is an elected Greens on the ticket councillor and has stood for Lord Mayor on behalf of the Australian Greens for many elections.
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
What's the point of order?
Someone's political representation is not relevant to the item under discussion.
Not relevant. Look, I think around this table we do a bit of, there's been a bit of talk of people being Greens and not Greens and Liberal Party members, so I don't consider that to be at a high enough level for it to be a point of order. Thanks, Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I think it's important at this juncture to point this out, because when you look at Greens policy around this country and indeed in this state, every single Greens branch around the country is trying to tackle this problem through a variety of means around the legislative tools that they have available to them. This includes in Tasmania, where the Tasmanian Greens' formal stance is for an immediate halt on new permits of whole home short stays and a phasing out of existing listings in residential areas. This is Councillor Harvey's position this evening is at odds to his own party's position, and that is particularly troubling should Councillor Harvey wish to stand again
Point of order.
For a member of the Greens.
Point of order. Sit down, please, Councillor.
I'm being
Posselt.
misrepresented here. What I've said tonight has nothing to do with the points made. They're completely different. Greens policy and what I've stated tonight about following good process.
Yeah, okay.
Two different things.
I hear you, Councillor Harvey, but I think it's probably just, I would consider it to be general debate at this stage, rather than misrepresentation.
Lord Mayor, point of order. I believe that's threatening. It was an
No,
attack.
I don't agree it's threatening.
Well, a little while ago...
I've made a ruling. Councillor Zuko, please sit down. Alderman Zuko. Please finish, Councillor Posselt.
So to continue on, I just have a question for our staff. Would a recommendation to double short stay accommodation foreseeably be brought in any other way to this table other than via a notice of motion?
CEO.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. So look, I think officers have made the position clear in that respect and recommended a lesser value in terms of their increase. So the answer is probably no to that.
Thank you, CEO. So what we actually hear is that we don't have the likelihood of a policy ever coming forward to this council chamber to double short stay accommodation rates. There is no other process. This is the process. This is democracy in action. And under Section 20 of the Local Government Act, this council has the following functions: to provide for the health, safety and welfare of the community, and to represent and promote the interests of the community. Since 2008, the rapid expansion of short stay accommodation through digital disruption caused by the emergence of short stay rental platforms such as Airbnb and Stays has led to a degradation in the social fabric of our communities around this city, but not only that, around the state, the country, and the world. The displacement of residents with tourists is having a real and detrimental impact on our communities, which is why the Greens have the policies they have around this country. Because according to Inside Airbnb, Airbnb's global expansion since 2008 has become a structural threat to housing systems worldwide. It is structurally incompatible and poses a systemic risk to long-term housing. That is a global statement, not just here in Tasmania. And I would ask that since 2008, we have had almost 20 years to address this. We have watched it grow around the world, and it has gotten to a point where tourism economies all over the world have realised that their communities are suffering as a result of short stay accommodation displacing residents. This is small towns like St Helens on the east coast of Tasmania. It is big cities like Barcelona and New York, and we are not immune from this crisis here. This is our opportunity to act, to lead with our communities first. We need leadership, because having strong communities is what predicts everything for us. As soon as we start to degrade social fabric and displace people, it erodes trust in each other. We see increases in crime, as an example. Increase is in social upheaval because people don't know each other, because people have been pushed out. As Councillor Lohberger said, Councillor Lohberger has worked at City Mission on the front of the housing crisis. He has seen the real impact. And I'm sure that we all heard his voice crack a couple of times, because I have seen it too. You know, the time that I had to pick up a 14-year-old and drive him from Claremont in the ambulance to a rural property in Brighton municipality to go and live in the sleeper truck of his boss in a paddock is a great example, because we hear that, oh, well, the tourism economy is so important. What about that 14-year-old's future? But it's not just that. We know that community services are calculated based on the number of residents. Every single loss of a residential property and displacement with a tourist. Lord Mayor, I ask for 3 more minutes, please.
Moved by Alderman Zuko, seconded by Councillor Dudda. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no, carried unanimously. 3 minutes.
Every single resident that we lose and displace with short stay accommodation risks our critical social services that we all use and that we all benefit from. Our suburbs are built around people living in them. The way schools have been implemented since the turn of the century has been around people living there. And when you go to a place that is very close to a high-density short-stay accommodation like Alvira Street Primary and Goulburn Street Primary, you find that enrolments are dropping because nobody is living in the community anymore. Post offices are closing. The viability of pharmacies is becoming lower. And if you want to stimulate the economy and talk about local bars and cafes, you know who spends the most in them? Locals. Locals do. It places government services at risk, but it also ruins our neighbourhoods. Because my elderly neighbour, Roger, he's in his 80s, and I keep an eye on him. Yeah, last night I was in his kitchen telling him that his lights were left on his car so he didn't have a flat battery. I take his bins out, I help him in the garden. That is what community is. And the second that Roger is displaced with an Airbnb, or worse, I am displaced with an Airbnb, Roger loses those support services. He loses his community. He loses the people that matter to him, that ensure his safety and his well-being. And not only that, tourists are pushing us, the people of Hobart, further from services, further from where we work. You want to talk about traffic? Let's push people to the urban fringe and wonder why congestion is worse when we encourage tourists to replace them in the inner city. People, Hobartians, deserve to live near where they work, near where it is convenient to get to education, to services, to the hospital. And instead we lose 700 homes. 700 homes! I can't overstate that. That is 14 apartment blocks of 50 units. 14 apartment blocks of 50 units. That is not insignificant. It's 2/3 of the entirety of North Hobart that we've just gone, tourists can have that. As for the locals, you just head out to Clarendon Vale, good luck. Good luck, guys. And we also won't provide the rapid bus service to reach those areas because you don't matter anymore, you don't matter enough. It is time to act, Lord Mayor. It is time to show leadership in this space to provide a better community, a better future, and protect our communities from the erosion that has come by displacing residents with tourists.
Alderman Bloomfield.
Lord Mayor, I want to begin by acknowledging that the housing pressure in Hobart, because it is real. It affects workers, families, students, older people, and people already under strain. But the question tonight actually isn't whether or not housing matters, because it does. The question is whether raising one lawful property category to 400% of the residential rate is fair. Is it proportionate, and is it evidence-based, and is it likely to work? Because I don't believe the case is being made at all. And my first concern is, frankly, the precedent that this sets. Because if council uses rates as a financial penalty against one lawful activity, just because it doesn't like that activity, then where does it end? Because today it's short stay accommodation, tomorrow it could be another lawful use that falls out of favour, such as let's increase the fee for keeping a dog, or perhaps imply a punitive charge for parking a car in the CBD because we don't like cars, or maybe a special rate on another business type that council decides they also don't like, because this is not careful governance. This is using the rating system as a weapon. Just because council may have a power does not mean we should use it on the outer edge. Powers should be exercised with restraint, especially when they can cause real financial harm. The second point is that restrictions on short stay accommodation do not automatically reduce rents. It's interesting that Councillor Posselt had used New York as an example, because that example is quite important. New York, in fact, had a local law 18 that came into effect in 2023. And when they excised that, which basically banned short stay accommodation, they fell by more than 90% throughout that community. And yet, 2 years later, we find that rents rose by 8.1%, and rental vacancies did not materially improve. So despite the fact that they removed 90% of short stay accommodation, you know what it did? It did nothing. Okay, we didn't improve the situation. We didn't allow better rental situations and lower rents at all. Now, Hobart's not New York, I know that, but the lesson's clear. If you remove or heavily restrict short stay, you're not going to automatically fix your housing problem at all. You're not going to make it more affordable, because housing markets are more complex than that. It's not caused by one sector alone. It's driven by supply, planning, infrastructure, construction costs, population growth. Now, I might add that population growth, I was actually checking the stats, they have increased by thousands every year, thousands in our city. And yet we seem to apply just one element, being the fact that short stay increased by, 100 houses. But, you know, the numbers here for immigration are in the thousands, 4,000 to 5,000 a year. So you really can't be fair with these types of figures. There's more than one element that changes things. If we want more housing, we need more housing stock. A 400% increase does not build a house, it does not directly fund affordable housing, it does not directly fund rental assistance, it does not guarantee one property becomes a long-term rental. And unless we decide otherwise, the additional rates just simply supplement residential ratepayers, those who already have a home. If we're going to put this forward as a housing measure, we should be able to explain exactly how the rate increase will deliver housing outcomes. We already have a short stay differential rate of 200%, and the material before me indicates that the current rate is already broadly aligned with comparable commercial use. And if I quote Destination Southern Tasmania, the commercial industrial benchmark would be closer to 221%, not 400%. And the 400%, the average short stay rate payer would have faced an additional 3,738.7, or around 92% more in general rates. It's not a modest adjustment. It's a very large impost on just one class of ratepayer. And if we're going to impose that kind of burden, we need proper governance, modelling, proper consultation, and a clear legal and policy basis. The material from the Short-Term Accommodation Association Australia refers to council administration advice. May I have 3 extra minutes, please?
Moved by Alderman Zuko, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously.
Refers to council administration advice showing that as of April 2026, 138 properties, or approximately 23% of the R7 classified, have already returned to residential use. And if that's correct, the current existing policy is already changing behaviour, and a sudden escalation to 400% is premature. It did not, however, deliver a net increase in rental property stock into the circulation. So as far as improving the plight of those who are homeless, it did nothing. And we should be careful with the assumption that every whole home short stay is a lost long-term rental, because some are primary residents used while owners are away, some are holiday homes, some are purpose-built visitor accommodation, some are heritage or tourism properties that were not ordinary rentals before and will not become ordinary rentals afterwards. Airbnb material says that CBOS data for the Q1 2026 records recorded 1896 short-stay accommodation properties in the Hobart local area, with 1,170 listed as primary residences and about 61.7%. That means we're considering 726 houses here. We've also received local examples from the Sanctum Boutique Apartments, which I think everyone in this room received. And he goes on to say that he had originally professional rooms, he made them short-term stay. They will go back to being professional rooms if, for instance, he was subjected to this additional ratepayer impost. And this is why blunt policy like this will fail. And short stay accommodation should be regulated, it should be rated fairly, but it should contribute also to the city. But the fair contribution is not the same as punishment. The responsible path is to pause this move to 400%, consider any measure adjustment against comparable commercial and industrial rates, and undertake proper modelling, consult affected people, and come back with a policy that's fair, defensible, and likely to work. Because housing matters too much for symbolic policy, and this is what this is. This got front page news on Thursday, made everyone look good, but actually will it deliver one bed? No, it won't. And that is appalling. That is not what we're here to do. We are here not to deliver something that looks good but doesn't deliver. We are here to do proper governance and things that actually deliver for people. So at the end of the day, I cannot support this move to the 400%. It's an appalling failure of governance. We are here to deliver, appropriate, measured outcomes. And that means that we don't just sit here and go, we're going to put out a random number and go for it. That's appallingly unfair. And I will point out too that I was really disappointed to find that this debate started with personal tax and elected members. That's also a lower of the tone. Thank you.
Sorry, you had another 30 seconds, sorry.
It's all right, thank you.
Yeah. Alderman Zucker.
Yes, Lord Mayor. I'd like a few questions first, Lord Mayor, if you wouldn't mind. Through you to the appropriate officer that can answer the question, whether it's 600 or 700 houses that are on the short stay market, full houses on the short. Could someone please advise me how much extra rates the 2% would provide the council?
Ms McDonnell, have you?
Through you, Lord Mayor, if the question is how much additional revenue the city will get, zero. The city will not get any additional revenue from this because the revenue for the rates is set in the budget. All this means is that short stay properties would pay more in rates and all other residential properties would pay
I'll rephrase the question. How much would the short stay accommodation, the 600 or 700 short, actually provide in extra revenue to the council? Not general, I'm talking about those specific.
I think approximately, Ms McDonnell.
Yes, give me an approximate fine.
$1,000
each?
Or take it on notice.
Thank you, through you, Lord Mayor. So an average property short stay visitor accommodation has a capital value of 908,000. So if the question is at 4 times how much more they would pay, it's $3,738 more than this year, than what is projected for 26-27, or a 92% increase, and that's at
What's
4
the total?
times. So the total would be $7,822. That is the total.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm seeking an actual total amount of dollars that will be generated in extra revenue for that specific purpose.
It may need to be taken on notice, Alderman Zuko, because it's quite a specific question.
So Mr McNamara just said 3,700 extra per property, is that correct?
Yes, for the average property.
Let's say by 6, $2.2 million. Okay, that's a rough estimate. Could anybody answer if the whole 600 or 700 properties in the short stay market tomorrow all immediately ceased, how many of those properties would be on the social housing market?
Sorry, no contributions from the floor, thanks. Alderman Zuko, I'm not sure that there's a staff member who's able to respond to that fairly.
Well, we've got a report here, Lord Mayor, and I'm just trying to ascertain why we haven't got everything, but we haven't got everything. So, look, I'll go into debate now. And this is the whole thing. When we don't have a proper report to look at things, all we've got here is council officers giving us some details. Now, I listened before about homelessness. Some 14-year-old had to be dragged into some caravan or something like that. I'd just like to put this on the record again. In 1994, the late Darlene Haig went down the pathway of the first 2 social workers on the streets of Hobart, and I worked with her very closely. And we found a lot of kids living on the streets, living in garages. I even employed quite a number of them myself. I've done my bit over the years in regards to the homeless issue. But we talk about housing and we assume that all of a sudden we can get rid of 700 houses and all of a sudden they're going to be on the social market. Then not one of them would be on the social market. The failures of the shortage of housing is not just Airbnb or short stay. The failure, as we well know it at the moment as well, is immigration as well. There's a big long list of reasons why we have problems. I've actually, in my time of being on council, I've been to 6 housing summits. There was one in 2018. And the one in 2018 prompted me to write a op-ed which got printed in the Mercury. I don't normally read things, I'm normally off the cuff, but I need to read this. Because this is my op-ed of 2018, in which I was in a housing summit previous to that. I think I was about 2014 and maybe go back to 2010. There was this constant theme of housing shortage. So the housing shortage is not the blame of it is not Airbnb, because they've only been around for a short time. It's a combination of a lot of things. The Building Code of Australia. I've stated that time and time again, and now for 25 years I've pushed the problem we have with first floor accommodation. The Building Code of Australia stops us developing those, and they're the ones you can actually build into the social housing market. And I want to read this op-ed, and I'm going to ask my 3 minutes of extension of time now, Lord Mayor. So I've got it up nice and early.
Okay, moved by Alderman moved by Councillor Dudder, second by Councillor Posselt. All those in favour say aye. Against say no.
I wrote this one here in 2018, but because I got frustrated with the constant, and I said, housing crisis can be eased with sensible solution and sound decisions. Tonight we're not doing that. While welcoming the proposed housing summit, there must be some serious consideration of a number of issues the Hobart City Council are seeing regularly. Those issues relate to building code, overcomplicated planning provisions, some holiday accommodation, the Tenants Act, and the underutilisation of open space car parking or airspace rights. These are some of the issues that have been brought forward to the HCC, but sadly either the Commission reports have either ended up on the shelf or have not been taken seriously. I wrote this in 2018. 8 years ago. Now all of a sudden we've got the worst housing crisis we're talking about. You don't have to look to see the vast amount of empty shop spaces in and around the CBD that could be developed, but because of the building code, it's extremely difficult and costly to undertake the refurbishment. So you get what I mean? Imagine if we had resolved the building code, how many apartments we could have had. At the same time, there are a number of HSC and privately owned open car parks which can be developed into housing. I was instrumental, and I'm sorry I'm going in developing the Common Ground project by City Mission in Liverpool Street above a property owned by the Hobart City Council before Councillor Lohberger's time. Before, excuse me, did I interrupt Councillor Lohberger, Lord Mayor? I just got interrupted twice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please don't do that, Councillor.
And before Councillor Passault came on the horizon. I've actually been pushing for a lot of Hobart City Council owned properties to be looked at in similar light to Common Ground, because what we can do is assist the market, not put further tax burdens on that current market. The planning approval processes in local government should be administered by an independent professional body. No disrespect to our staff, I've been on that agenda for years. You go to Queensland, you go to Gold Coast, in 4 months they get a 20-storey building approved. Here I have spoken to developers who have got so frustrated in trying to get development approvals, they've given up the ghost in Hobart. We haven't got a crane, we haven't seen a crane. But if people honestly think that by attacking the short stay market, we're all of a sudden going to have housing and at approximately $2 million a year extra in revenue in one domain, that doesn't deliver one extra house, one extra social house. Now, if the whole proposal was that money, $2 million, go into delivering social housing, there's a reason to do it. But there's no reason to do it other than a tax, because if you look at the Local Government Act, rates are a tax. It says it in the Act. Through you to the General Manager, is that correct or incorrect?
No, that's correct.
That's correct. It's a tax. Rates are a tax. So that's all we want to do here, is tax people. What annoyed me, Lord Mayor, is we had an elected member on the social media attacking property owner Marty Zuko. You know, I'm a big property owner. Lord Mayor, I've been working my butt off since I was 11 years of age. I have got no silver spoon. Everything I've got, I've worked for. I used to work 18 hours a day, Lord Mayor, with my 2 kids at home. I'd barely see them. But because I'm a property owner, I'm attacked on social media regarding the housing market. I do have some rentals. There's one of my tenants, I haven't put up her rent in 5 years. But I get attacked as being a greedy property owner. Lord Mayor, everyone wants to get a bit of kudos. Everyone wants a little bit of ammunition to go towards this next election, using a one-dimensional component on how you're going to resolve the housing crisis of Hobart in the centre of the CBD of Hobart.
Alderman Zuko, that's time. That's 8 minutes.
Oh, is it? I better sit down. I think you get my drift.
Councillor Kelly.
Question to through you, Chair, to the Councillor Lohberger. Just to clarify a few points, so we're on the same song sheet here. How many short stay houses are there in the Hobart LGA?
That is a very difficult question to answer because everybody has different figures, Councillor Kelly. The state government says one number, the council says another, and then there's another number which is the council's number minus the remissions. So it is hard to say. You know, the CBOS dashboard was launched with great fanfare just last week or the week before. It says a significantly higher number, over 700. Council staff are saying over 600, with about 500 of them actually taken up those permits. But yeah, it's a good point you make because there is a number of different sources of information, and it's quite difficult to tell which one to use.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, you also mentioned tonight that the last increase in short stay rates has made no difference to the increase of newer short stay accommodation. That's correct. Okay, thanks for confirming that. Are you still campaigning to go to 10 times the rate? Are you still campaigning for that now?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm just reading out Reddit from Councillor Posselt. We've advised that we may get challenged if we go too hard. That said, there is an appetite to increase it. At one stage, Lohberger and I were campaigning for 10 times. Is this correct, Councillor Posselt?
Yeah, thanks very much. I can
Yes or no?
No, Councillor Kelly, you've asked a question. You can't demand a particular type of response.
Thanks. Lord Mayor, I need to give some context. I am the author of that post on Reddit, and I can only speak for myself. I had many conversations with elected members around the table when we first discussed differential rating and the abilities for us to use differential rates to leverage policy outcomes for this city. One of those policy outcomes is to ensure that we get residential homes returned to the community to live in, and I have proposed in the past 10 times rates as a differential to ensure that our community have homes to live in.
10, okay. So
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. So this question to Councillor Posselt. So it's 10 times.
Councillor Kelly, do you mind just doing...
Still
Councillor
stand,
Kelly.
your opinion?
Councillor Kelly. Questions through the Chair, please.
Through you, Chair. To you, Councillor Posselt. So is 10 times an increase still on your agenda?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. My only concern is with providing homes for Tasmanians, ensuring the protection of community services and the continuity of our communities. And I will do everything in my power to protect those things and to represent the needs of our community to ensure we have a vibrant community moving forward that we can all enjoy, where we have neighbours that we know, not tourists coming and opening doors in the middle of the night and laundry vans arriving the next day.
So, but anyway, I'll move on. Through you, Chair, to the CEO. CEO, do we have the ability legally or any other reason or any other way of increasing rates by 10 times to short stay accommodation?
CEO.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Look, the same rationale would be put as the proposal tonight in the sense that we would need the policy basis and which would need to be backed by analysis in order to support an increase of that magnitude.
Thank you. I'll go into the debate now. Thank you, Chair. I actually grew up in the early 60s on the corner of the Brooker Highway and Bathurst Streets. And it was in a rented house. It was pretty run down. It was the early days of mum and dad having a family, not much money, and I lived in a council rented house. Those are the days the Hobart City Council rented out properties to people on no income. And I benefited from that while my parents got on their feet and were able to buy a house. Perhaps instead of spending millions of dollars on bike lanes and scramble crossings, imagine what we could do providing extra beds to these people that Councillor Posselt speaks about, of having nowhere and all that, which we deeply sympathise with. Maybe we don't have our priorities right. As I said, those are the days council had houses. They weren't great, but they put a roof over our head and they provided the start. Nobody here tonight denies that there is a rental crisis. And to solve any problem, we must first understand how this came about. The rental crisis has been caused primarily by the state and federal government's failure to provide social housing, and secondly, the federal government's policy to allow more migration into this country than there is housing infrastructure. Two really important points. However, the fact is that we need to do something. And it's just a pity that once again this is getting dumped on to a local council to make good this slackness by the federal and state government. The overall median dwelling price in Hobart sits at least $600 a week, rental price. There's no way known the demographic that needs this type of accommodation can afford that. Even if the short stay accommodation were all to be returned to the open market, that demographic needs a roof over their head and they just simply couldn't live in Hobart. Simple as that. Also to consider, there are buildings in Hobart that are not suitable for short stay accommodation, and should they be ceased to be used as such, they would only be returned to commercial use. The Sanctum boutique apartments in Hobart is a case in point. There's many others. Also, why is there many vacant properties that are out there in Hobart? Why hasn't that even been brought up as a possible solution? The incentives for hotels have been suggested. What are they? We're getting all these ideas. I'm none the wiser. The proposal in this motion is not proportionate, evidence-based, nor consistent with Council's own principles of equity, transparency, sustainability and capacity to pay and for fairness. Bear in mind, last month this council decided in their wisdom to increase short stay application fees from $435 to a massive $5,000. That's right, $435 to $5,000. It just shows you the logic and rationale we use in this chamber. There is nothing evil nor illegal with people having short stay homes. They should not be vilified for conducting a perfectly legitimate activity that creates jobs, a type of accommodation that hotels simply cannot provide and cannot offer. This motion is, once again, as Alderman Zugo pointed out, it lacks clarity, it lacks facts, it lacks figures. How can we possibly move forward with such a half-baked motion here tonight? The officers do not support it. They'll put there precisely what that should be. Read it yourselves in the report. So, Chair, I will not be supporting this motion as it sits, and it's a sad way this council is going about trying to solve an incredibly important issue.
Further discussion? Councillor Coates.
Look, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I'll just keep this quick. You know, I think there is a reality which is all accommodation is of value. Now, you know, the reality is most people live at home for 48 weeks of a year and they're on holiday for 4. You know, you sort of think about that. So roughly 10% of the time, a bit under 10% of the time, you're living somewhere that's away from your home. Now, some people, when they're doing that, will be living in hotels because they're travelling for work and they need to be next to a conference. Some will be families that want to come with children and families and want to be able to rent a house out because they want to be able to visit their grandparents who live in the same city. You know, this idea that somehow in the municipality of Hobart we don't need accommodation for visitors is, I think, a weird premise. And that ultimately is the premise that this motion before us talks to. You know, as I see it, this is essentially a way of, you know, we don't have the power to make this illegal, that's a state government affair, and so instead what we're just going to do is go down a pathway of increasing fees and charges to such an extent that essentially it does make it illegal. Or, you know, of such economic cost that, you know, it essentially outlaws. I mean, you know, you don't have to go far to see where these sort of schemes go wrong. I mean, you know, we've all seen what's happening with the excise on cigarettes, where, you know, you get to a point where, frankly, just doing all these charges and stuff means everyone goes to the black market. You know, frankly, if you were a house in Hobart, there'd be people now thinking, stuff dealing with council, stuff getting the right permits, stuff doing the right thing. I'll just advertise privately and do it myself. And that's what this is heading towards. The reality is there is a demand for visitor accommodation. I think it's a legitimate demand. I think we should actually be supporting the fact that people want to come and visit our city. You know, a lot of these people are families that want to come back and visit extended relatives. They're people that are coming for sporting events. They're people that are coming to visit and experience all that this great island and city has to offer. And you know, if individuals have chosen to provide that sort of accommodation, I personally don't have an issue with it. I mean, I've got a group of friends from uni. We do ski trips, and of course we stay at Airbnbs. We're travelling as a group. We want a house. We want to be able to save money and cook a meal, and like that's perfectly normal. You know, I sort of find it sort of bizarre that we would seek to outlaw that. But you know, this idea that putting a 400% charge on, or 200% on top, for people that are doing this is just wrong. I mean, I celebrate the fact that we've got the ability to host people in our city where a hotel might not be the appropriate form of accommodation for them. It might be that they've got, you know, multi-generational families or children or kids or babies, and they want the ability to have extra rooms and place to enjoy. You know, I think we should encourage those sort of people to be able to visit our city. You know, we do know that a lot of these are essentially commercial buildings that were converted. You know, it's not all sort of affordable housing, and I think it's a bit of a misnomer to sort of expect that by getting rid of one we're going to somehow increase purely long-term rentals. I mean, the reality is us as a council has not perhaps got the best record when it comes to encouraging development. If there is demand for more housing, whether it's rental, short-term accommodation, or social housing, I mean, I think we can look long and hard at the levers that we can pull in that regard to actually develop more of it, rather than just seeking to penalise those that are offering what is clearly a form of accommodation but is in demand. And I should add, supports a lot of economic activity in this city. You know, as I said, I think it's a good thing. We should be allowing this. So I can't be supporting the motion tonight. Thanks.
Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to begin by making some observations. Firstly, you know, a lot of I statements have been used, and I don't usually want to talk about myself, but in the context, let me also say that I grew up not in Hobart, but in Fiji. And I left school when I was 13 because my father could not pay my school fees. And every Monday the head teacher used to call us and call my name, and in front of a co-educational school, I was so embarrassed that I couldn't pay my school fees. Therefore I left in order to work at a Chinese shop to earn enough money for my other siblings to go to school. I wasn't born here, but I know the difficulties. We had no electricity. We were very poor. I want to also say that I have also been attacked not only on social media, like someone has commented, but I have been attacked physically, spat on. And at my shop in South Hobart, they wrote all kinds of things. And I know what it is to be attacked. And I'm not using my race as a race card. Please don't think of that. All what I'm saying is that I have been attacked and I know what it is like to be attacked. But let me just make 3 very simple points as far as the motion is concerned. The first point is, it is the right of every individual elected member to bring a motion. And so Councillor Passault and Councillor Lohberger is simply exercising their right to bring a motion to council. And it happens all the time. So all members here are able to say that they brought the motion because they were motivated, whatever the motivation was, and they brought it to council. I respect their rights and I want to debate this. Point number 2, the rationale that they have presented is very clear. It is a much better rationale in my 8 years that I've found here than so many other motions that I've come across. The other rationale sometimes I've read, even the staff would say they can't support it. But here the staff is not saying that. They're not saying they can't support it. They've given their perspective. So when you look at the rationale that they've presented to us, they've presented facts, they've presented the evidence, but they've also made a number of assumptions. And it is quite okay for those elected members who have now asked the questions to say, how can we support those assumptions? And that's part and parcel of the process. And the third point I want to make here is this. The relevant motion in front of us makes 3 points. Point number 1, it simply says that the Hobart City Council should, on dot points, about half a dozen things, shortage of housing, this. Let us note that. That's all it's saying. That's the one element of the motion. The second element of the motion, again, it's very clear. It says we want to double the rates, but hang on, only for whole house, but before you do that, you must take into consideration all these points. They've used the word all. Please take into consideration all these points before you make a recommendation. And what are these considerations that the council staff will have to take on board? They're saying, after you have considered the legislative requirements, the consultation process, the tourism industry, etc., then present the report to us. Now the council staff, remember, in campaign, when people are campaigning, can say, I'm going to do it 100%. We don't take that literally, obviously. But in principle, what they're saying is that we want to increase this because it's not being fair. If I was to take that literally, it'll be terrible. It's like in the Bible, you know, God said, or the scripture says, if someone asks you for a shirt, give your trousers as well. No way we can do that today, if you take that literally, because you'll be charged for offensive behavior or whatever. May I have 3 minutes, please?
Moved by Councillor Coates, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Can say no.
So the motion in front of me is very clear. All what they're saying, we are really concerned about this. We don't want to put this on 26, 27. We want the staff to go out there, do all the research and homework, and then bring it back to us. Now, similarly, remember, when it was $435, as Councillor Kelly has reminded us, the staff didn't accept it. They went and did their homework, then they came back and said, it's okay for you to raise it to 5,000. Now, the same thing is happening now. The staff will not come back to us to say, yes, we increase it to 400%. No way they will say it. They will hold us back as elected members and say, now come back to reality. Legally, and in so many other ways, you can't do it. All what we suggest is you now make it to 210. That's all they will say to us. And we will have to accept what they will say. So for us to say that we are doing this is not right. I think at the end of the day, we are all guided by staff. They don't play politics. They will tell us straight, here are the facts. here's the recommendation, you now make the decision. And they will tell us, you can't do it, because there'll be legal ramifications. So for me, it is very simple, it is very straightforward, and I will support it because there is only a report. If there was going to be this increment for 26, 27, I would not support it. And therefore I'm saying, bring the report back to us, let us look at the facts and evidence, and then I will look at it and make the decision then. Thank you very much.
Alderman Bloomfield.
Can I have a question to
Yes, you
Councillor
can.
Dulles through you?
Yes, you can.
I'd just like to know, was your argument suggesting that you actually genuinely think that the 400% increase is not possible? Are you suggesting that?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. All what I'm suggesting, that they have a motion put to us. That is the suggestion they're making. They're saying, go into the report and see if my suggestion is absolutely nonsense or foolish. Bring us back to say what we will be. But it doesn't stop them. That's what I'm saying. Right? You can ask for 600 or 1,000, and then will come back to us, the staff, to say, come on, don't be so stupid. It's not real. Legally, realistically, we can't do that. Please come back and do it to 210 or 180, whatever it is. Thank you.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Look, it's a very difficult motion, isn't it? And it has most certainly raised various different perspectives here in this chamber. And I must admit, Lord Mayor, it is a very difficult one because I understand both sides of what has been said. I fully appreciate what Alderman Zupo, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Coates and Alderman Bloomfield, and of course my fellow Green colleague has said with regards to this motion. I would like to point out point 2, because we've all focused on point 1, and the media has an interesting way of reporting things, but I would like to just read out point 2 in the motion, which is supporting the visitor accommodation sector and tourism industry in anticipation of lower short stay accommodation availability by preparing a report to investigate incentives for commercial hotel construction. I think that's a really wonderful part in the motion that we haven't really highlighted. And I really like to commend my colleagues for bringing that particular aspect as well. I would also like to read something from the Destination Southern Tasmania, if you just indulge me, Lord Mayor. Hobart's visitor accommodation is one of the city's most important economic drivers. It supports accommodation, hospitality venues, attractions, tour operators, transport providers, retailers, cultural institutions, event organisers and many small businesses across the municipality. The officer advice makes clear that the current short stay visitor accommodation differential rate is set at 200%, broadly reflecting the commercial nature of the activity. I would also like to note some of the emails that we've received from people like Sanctum Boutique Apartments with their open letter to us just regarding the doubling of the rate. And I do feel the empathy contained and within the sentiment of these particular messages, and also from ones that have been sent from various different individuals and ratepayers such as Rob Windsor, and of course the one that was sent to us by Thomas Davison. They all make really valuable points, specifically that the accommodation within short stay really supports the local employment in areas such as cleaning, maintenance, hospitality, tourism services, trades, small businesses, estimated economic contribution, and of course operators in terms of the different things that they're facing right now. The financial burdens that short stay accommodation individuals face, such as planning approvals, differential council rates, land tax, compliance obligations, and proposed state levies. Like any issue, it's really important to try to have a holistic understanding, and that's what I've tried to do once I heard about this particular motion. I've tried to understand it from various points of view, and the beauty about being a Green on council is that we can disagree. And whilst I don't appreciate some of the slippery slope arguments and the fear-mongering that has happened, I immigrated to this country. I feel like I make a really valuable contribution. I immigrated and lived in the basement of my auntie's house when we first came here. And a lot of migrants that come to this country, it's not cheap to come to Australia. It's really not cheap. And that amount of money contributes to our economy as well. The implication that the housing crisis is a result of various different issues related to immigration, it doesn't settle well with me, and I find it quite an absurd argument, because I think it solely rests on our government. It solely rests on our government for the money that they get from immigrants to be able to, of course, provide the various different housing possibilities and options that are available. And so, Lord Mayor, I find myself at a crossroads, at a juncture, at an intersection where I completely understand the perspectives from my fellow colleagues, and I also understand the viewpoints for the individuals who have put forward this motion. But I think Councillor Dutta, I feel like sometimes Councillor Dutta is in my mind. He actually made a point that I wanted to say, which is, again, I think it's not been reported accurately around the motion itself. Can I just ask for 3 minutes, Lord Mayor? I probably won't take up the entire time.
Moved by Councillor Posselt, second by Alderman Zuko. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously.
Thank you. What I think needs to really be highlighted is that it says that this will occur potentially may occur after all legislative requirements. I mean, we know some of the things that are going through state government. Maybe it won't go through, who knows? After all, including consultation, has been met. Maybe it won't be met, maybe it won't be done, maybe it will, who knows? But to have the fear-mongering around this is a certainty, this is definitely going to happen, I feel like this is already calling for a report. I feel like it's already calling for a stage process of, well, let's understand what all of these requirements are. And not just that, but when we do understand that, let's help our visitor accommodation. Let's help the sector. Let's help the tourism industry. Let's put forward some of those investigative initiatives for commercial and hotel construction. I feel like it's a really balanced approach. I feel like it's understanding exactly some of the crisis that's going around in our communities, because let's understand, the Hobart City Council can't really solve the housing crisis by ourselves. This is but one of those levers that we can potentially pull. And so I'd like to finish, Lord Mayor, with something that was in the paper today from Brian Risby. He's a freelance planner, and he says, increases in rates on these properties are also attracting criticism on the basis that there is no additional local load on services than generated by the normal residential use. A fair point, even though these are plainly commercial operations. All of these responses are driven by a common concern to reduce the negative impacts of short stay. However, there's another impact starting to become more evident: the loss of positive aspects in the neighbourhood. It's the other side of the same coin. The issue is not more visitors, it's fewer neighbours. Mitigating negative impacts of short stay does not make up for people losing neighbours and community in what are supposed to be residential neighbourhoods. And I'd like to finish with some of the last paragraph that he's actually said. The main intent of the residential zone is, not surprisingly, to avoid places for people to live in for the infrastructure and service houses needs. Non-residential uses are allowed where they do not cause an unreasonable loss of amenity. Visitor accommodation must be compatible with residential character. If this is ignored, then there's a danger of ending up with what are increasingly referred to as ghost streets, which look for all the world like places people live in, but are in fact residentially themed holiday parks. Battery Point was heading this way until the Hobart City Council introduced controls on conversion to short stay. This has established a precedent which the Tasmanian planning system allows, where a case can be made if the number of conversions in any residential zone is compromising its primary purpose, then perhaps there's a case for limiting them. Finally, while we are all focusing on increasing housing supply, we should bear in mind that the permitted change of use to short stay is the equivalent of a hole in the bottom of the bucket we are trying to fill, because every new house built is potentially an as of right conversion to short stay. On the basis of that, Lord Mayor, I want to thank my fellow colleagues for bringing it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Any further discussion? Alderman. Alderman
I just
Bloomfield.
have one more question. Through you, has there been any legal inference from anybody at this point in time regarding this? Do we have anything?
That might be for the CEO. Have you received any legal letters?
No, we haven't, no.
Okay, yes, I might say a few words. There's been so much discussion. Obviously, everyone's had a really decent amount of time, and this is every time we discuss visitor accommodation, and it has been discussed many times since, I reckon, about 2016, when the state government deregulated the sector. It's always been a point of debate about, what impact this has, what this particular change, this deregulation, and allowing pretty much as of right short stay accommodation conversions, what impact that's having on our Hobart economy and our Hobart housing market. So, it's not unusual that this debate's gone so long, and it's a difficult issue. And I just want to note that I really think the City of Hobart does a good job in addressing this problem, because it clearly is a problem, and I do want to just point out a little bit of evidence to note that this is certainly, we do have a challenge here. Firstly, I just wanted to pick up on Alderman Bloomfield said that the population was going up in the City of Hobart. It's not. This is an existential crisis on our the residential population of our city. In 2022, our population decreased by 0.46%. 2023 down again 0.11%. 2024 down 0.30%. 2025 down 0.25%. So we are seeing a decline in our population, in our residential population, and a big part of that is the 600 to 700 homes that have been in a relatively short time converted from long-term rentals into short-term holidays. And I know there's some really strong views from people who own properties and the companies that are profiting from this, but there is really good work being done to examine this, evidence-based work. And I did want to just point out that Shelter Tasmania has done a power of work over at more than 5 years. They commissioned a piece of work to actually do a deep dive into all of the short stay rentals that were on the platform at a particular point in time. And then they got access through some collaboration, I think, with the Real Estate Institute. I can't remember who it was. There's a report online that found that 57%, this is in Hobart, City of Hobart, 57% of whole home short stay accommodation were previously long-term rentals. So nearly 60% of our short stay accommodations were, when you looked back in time, were being advertised on realestate.com as long-term rentals. So there is certainly, without doubt, pretty much, I think it's undebatable, our population is declining, there are less long-term rentals around, and those long-term rentals are being converted into short stay. And we hear from the owners why they do that, because they do find it a more attractive proposition, profit-wise and flexibility-wise. We understand why, because we've had that feedback from hosts. So we understand why. I guess the challenge we have as elected members is we do have to look at the entire city, and many cities around the world are dealing with this. We're not Robinson Crusoe, but what we are is a very beautiful city that a lot of people from our big cities, particularly Sydney and Melbourne visitors, they come to Hobart, they want to pretend they're living here like a local. We'd love it if they actually did come and visit, come and live here, but they choose to stay in a home in our neighbourhood, and the percentage of our short stays compared to our population is really off the charts compared to any other capital city. So, these are. Can I have another? 3 minutes, why not? Everyone else did. Moved by Councillor Posselt, second by Alderman Zuko. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. So yeah, look, I think it is really tough, and I am also very supportive of all the planning steps we have taken. They've been far too, they've taken too long, which is the fault of our planning system. But, you know, this is a lack of leadership, not necessarily from the council tonight, but it's a lack of leadership from the state government. The evidence just gets presented and presented and presented. That the complete deregulation, the complete inability for any council to have any control over this is not working. And so what we find is councils looking for, you know, now it's been since 2016, we've been looking at planning tools, rating tools, you know, so many tools, and it really is thinking about those fundamental concerns about loss of long-term rentals and loss of population. And that final piece of evidence I just wanted to mention was that during COVID, the Reserve Bank of Australia said that it was the drop in short stay, this drop in visitors and the influx of short stay apartments coming onto the rental market again that led to a decline in rents. And so all of this shows us that this is a supply issue. And it's the withdrawal of supply, it's the withdrawal of homes from our long-term rental market. And I've, you know, consistently been deeply concerned about this, so I will support the motion on the basis that, as others have said, we're not making a decision tonight, we're seeking legal advice, we're seeking research, we're undertaking consultation to consider this as part of a budget more than a year away. Thank you.
One more question, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And that is, given that pointed out that there's been no legal noise to date, if, say, for instance, a 400% rate increase was put forward by this council, would that put this council at risk of legal action?
In terms of it, or any decision of the council really does open itself up to legal challenge for us, which is why the advice and the motion is framed around making sure that the legislative requirements, as has been expressed by quite a few speakers, as well, including consultation, is undertaken before any change is implemented.
Okay.
So, sorry, following up from that, so would it be reasonable to expect at this point in time that 400% would absolutely provide a legal challenge?
No, I think that's been answered, Alderman Bloomfield, and that is that the advice hasn't come back to us. So that would come back to us as to whether it would be legislatively allowed or wise to do that. Okay, so Councillor Lohberger, did you want to sum up?
I will just say a couple of quick words. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I found a few contributions quite inexplicable tonight, and I think the main thing that worries me is so many EMs, elected members around this table, saying that 221% was a more appropriate level to raise the rates to. Not that long after some of those same elected members voted against Councillor Dutter's amendment to do just that. Inexplicable. I can't understand that. Look, really for me, the most difficult thing that I've heard around the table today has been Councillor Harvey's contribution. I would just call on Councillor Harvey to listen to his voters and his party on this issue. This is our chance. These chances don't come around. There is no real issue with the process of bringing a motion to do this because there was no other way. There is no other way to do it. So I would just call on you, please, to sort of rethink the way you've indicated that you would vote and to support the motion if you can find it in yourself to do so. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Lord Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Harvey, there isn't an opportunity for you to, unless you want to ask a quick question.
No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
All right.
Don't tell me to sit down, Lord Mayor.
Okay.
Again, the bullying at the table.
Councillor Harvey.
All right.
Okay, we will vote now. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.
No.
Show of hands, all those in favour.
Councillor Dutta, Councillor Basalt, Councillor Lohberger, Deputy Lord Mayor and the Lord Mayor,
And against?
Alderman Zuko, Councillor Coates, Alderman Bloomfield, Councillor Kelly. Abstained, that is
Abstained,
5-all, that's lost.
So what was the vote, sorry?
5-all.
5-all?
5-all,
Thank you.
and abstain is a vote in the negative.
Who abstained?
Okay, so we will move on now to the next item.
Just let the people in the gallery know what that means, because I think they're looking around.
Oh, sorry. So that motion's been lost. The motion's been lost, yes.
Lost, yes.
Okay, so we're going to now move on to item 17, which is the response to questions without notice. Would someone like to move those? Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Coates. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 18 is any questions without notice. Councillor Coates.
Look, thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a quick question, but following on from, I think it was the last meeting where we had the increase in fees, I just wanted to get the question, if I could. So, could we understand a number of discretionary planning applications that related to the change of use from residential to visitor accommodation over the past 12 months?
Xavier, did you want to take that on notice? Or?
I'll take that on notice, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
There's no further questions. We will move on now to the responses to questions arising during debate be received and noted. Moved by Councillor Dutta, seconded by somebody. Could someone please pay attention? Alderman Bloomfield. All those in favour say aye. Against say no.
I just want to ask a question about that, because I was pretty sure I'd asked questions and they weren't included on this list.
Okay.
Sorry. I asked questions regarding short stay last meeting, and not one of them was listed on here.
Okay, so they were taken on notice during the meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That can be looked into for next time.
Yeah, I had a question very similar to Alderman Bloomfield's. I feel like I asked questions too, and I think Alderman Zuko asked a subsequent one to my one around code of conduct, the cost from each.
Okay, we'll look into that.
Thanks. Oh, okay,
yeah,
sure.
that may still be coming.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, that brings the open portion of our meeting to a close.